Welcome to a very happy bunch on the Aussie Football Passport. You could say life's a beach at the moment. And yes, there'll be plenty more Patrick Beach related puns in this episode. And I'm not resiling from that. I'm not apologizing because it is completely worth it. Anyway, I'll stop rambling on this intro and I will introduce Adam and Scott from the Brisbane Football Review. How are you, Scott?
I'm good, Alex. How are you?
Fan bloody tastic, I am. What about you, Adam?
Good. And look, you can have another 5 minutes or so get with all the beach related puns because he certainly deserved it. What a debut in a World Cup for that young man.
Yeah, incredible. And I mean, we'll get on to that a little bit. Well, not too long, but first of all, I would love you to plug your wonderful show, the Brisbane Football Review, Adam.
Yes, you can find us on Facebook, The Raw Review or Brisbane Football Review. Also on Twix at BNE Football, Instagram and Threads, Brisbane Football Review, all lowercase. On email, Brisbane Football Review at gmail.com. And you can find us on podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just before I get back to you, Alex, somehow, some way, our little collaboration with our predictions on our Facebook, we actually somehow managed 23,500 views
Wow.
on our Facebook page alone. I'm not sure if you've checked what on the Aussie Passport Facebook what you did, but
Yeah,
so
should have a look at
thank
that.
you very much to everyone who had a look and probably had a laugh at our boring and predictable predictions for the World Cup. Thank you.
And we're all just
Back to
taking
you.
screenshots just to make sure once we're wrong, they're going to remind us of that fact.
23,000 strongly remind us about that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly said cut it up and have a laugh. So yeah, I mean, oh, okay. I mean, not quite your numbers, lads, but I'm in the hundreds at least, 212. So
Hmm.
look, that's that, I think that might be the biggest reel because that's the only reel that
Yeah,
the Aussie Football
yeah,
Passport's had on
yeah.
Facebook. So look, better than a kick in the backside. So won't complain about that. But yes, and I was particularly not feeling that great after watching Brazil on Sunday
Mm.
morning. They were a little bit laboured, shall we say. That Moroccan goal was an absolute beauty. Recommend checking that one out. But let's talk Australia, the Socceroos. What an incredible win! And to your point, Adam, earlier around Patrick Beach, one of, as I saw it, and we discussed, four big calls from Tony Popovich going into that game with the starting lineup. Patrick Beach in goal for Matt Ryan, Cameron Burgess replacing Lucas Harrington. Probably a little bit less surprising considering the season that Cameron Burgess has had at Swansea in the championship, playing every single minute of the championship. What an absolute warrior he has been. Paul Okon-Engsler in for Jackson Irvine. So there's your captain and vice captain not in the starting lineup for the first game of the World Cup, which is absolutely bonkers. And Connor Metcalf, maybe not that surprising, but in that as part of that front three there. So, I mean, Adam, we were chatting before the game as well about how bold these calls were. I mean, you know, I guess
Well,
what did you think?
well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and Tony Popovich is probably a genius now. But let's rewind back to around about 1 o'clock on Sunday, and I think collectively as a nation, we go, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Like, yeah, to drop a combined 180 caps or so. Those two players was almost unthinkable. But look, it's the one thing that I guess that you've got to go with Tony Popovich. He's had these guys in camp, for a number of weeks now. Some longer than others, obviously. But he would have known, and he would have sensed that at least against Turkey, that maybe there was I guess a method to the madness. But look, I'd like to have given us all a heads up because that was a shocker from left field.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, Scott, you had some pretty strong opinions on that lineup, as did I. And, there were a few expletives when I saw that lineup, if I'm completely honest. And sorry, lads, I think you probably still got your ears ringing from the chats before the game yesterday.
Yeah, I was slightly short of expletives, but the one that was a real big surprise was the Patrick Beach over Matt Ryan to drop your captain going into a World Cup. We all thought Patrick Beach was the heir apparent potentially after the World Cup, and for him to start in game one, we'll go through his performance in a moment, but that decision was a massive decision, and you have to say it came up perfectly for Tony Popovich, and he had the courage of his convictions to say, "This is what I want to do with my starting lineup. I'm just going to go for it. I'm not going to play it safe. I'm not going to do the conservative thing and go with the experienced player, even if I do believe the younger player is the better option on this occasion." And those two young players he brought in, Patrick Beach and Paul Okonengsler, were absolutely exceptional for Australia in that game and the way things panned out. They were really were two of our better players in the game. I don't know if the Paul Ocon one was as big of a surprise as the Patrick Beach one because he had a lot more minutes in the lead up games and he'd done really well in those games. I thought it might be him alongside Jackson Irvine if they were going to start him. That one wasn't a surprise, and I think we all forecast last week that Cam Burgess would probably come in for experience and the fact he's a European hardened player that you mentioned in terms of over Lucas Harrington, and Connor Metcalf has been a regular in the side. I have to say I will give him an apology because he's one player I thought I wasn't really sure what his role was in this Australian side, but he did a massively good job on Sunday. So that was a really big selection. But Tony Popovich, he had the courage of his convictions to back in what he believes, and he looks like a genius. It could have gone wrong. It could have gone like the Jelko Kalac, Mark Sports thing in 2006, 2006. It could have gone like the Richard Garcia up front in 2010. But for Tony Popovich, it turned out to be 3 points.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? And yeah, while we're doing our apologies, I'd formally like to apologise on behalf of the Aussie Football Passport to Tony Popovich. I'm very sorry for what I've said to about you. That was very mean, but also you pulled it off, so fair play. And I mean, we've got to remember too, Tony Popovich is the first Socceroos coach to have also played at a World Cup and coached at a World Cup. So that experience, maybe it tells in that selection, and let's hope it carries forward for the rest of this tournament. But whilst we're there, Scott, let's go into Patrick Beach's performance because he looked like this was his second or third World Cup, if I'm completely honest. So I don't know if you viewed it the same.
He certainly looked completely assured, didn't he? He had no nerves whatsoever, and his first involvement was a set piece around 5 minutes into the game, and that was for a first involvement in a World Cup game to try and keep out a set piece. That's a nerve-wracking thing, I imagine. So he had a sensational game, and he built in confidence over the entire game, and you could see the confidence that they had in him in terms of keeping the ball at the back in the times where Australia were keeping the ball in possession. They were very comfortable giving the ball back to Pat Beach and playing it around the back line. So maybe that was part of the thinking in why Tony Popovich wanted to go in that direction, not necessarily a shot stopping thing, which Patrick Beach was sensational at that. Some 3 or 4 really impressive saves. I know a couple of them were straight at him, but the time to make those saves and the reflexes, it was a really impressive first up performance. But I wonder if it was more the in possession stuff that might have gave Patrick Beach the advantage over Matt Ryan. But like you said, he looked completely assured and looks like he may very well be the goalkeeper for years to come based on that performance.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to see how even Matt Ryan gets his spot back. Unless Popper's got another selection surprise for us against the USA next weekend. But I mean, yeah, Adam, Patrick Beach, we're seeing the birth of the new Socceroos goalkeeper for World Cup campaigns to come, hopefully, and quite potentially a move abroad after these. Well, it's one impressive performance, so I guess we should keep a lid on it. We don't want to sound like our Atlantic Northern Atlantic friends. But yeah, Adam, did you see anything in particular you want to note about Patrick Beach yesterday?
If I'm trying to think without sort of the hyperbole and the I guess the emotion of it all, I just get a sense that maybe Patrick Beach is a better distributor of the ball than maybe of Matt Ryan or Paul Izzo. Let's not forget him as well. That I think we all sort of going into this tournament thought that Patrick Beach was the clear number 3 keeper. He's probably there for the experience, there to soak up the atmosphere. But look, he is a future Socceroo goalkeeper, stage goalkeeper. But I think if anything, maybe that's the way that Tony Popovich sets up the defense, the way it plays out from the back, his distribution, and it all showed in that first goal that they scored against, well, basically against the run of play, where that his throw to find Paul O'Connor-Eastler was a very good a good throw that then gave the space to Eastler to puff it downfield, and the rest is history with Iran Kunda. But that's the only thing I can suggest. Perhaps he may have had it over his other two keepers, is that his distribution may be that little bit more stronger, a little bit more defined than, say, Ryan or Izzo.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think you've analysed that quite well, to be honest. That we're 24 hours or a bit more on from the game now, and we've had that chance to digest that decision because, as we've said already, it's such a big shock. But to actually look at that performance, yeah, it's hard to fault Patrick Beach. I think he may have put one goal, one clearance out, but other than that, he basically found his man every single time. And I think, as you pointed out, Scott, the boys in front of him were quite comfortable in passing back to him and knowing that he wouldn't misplace his pass, which is a huge vote of confidence. And I guess that confidence really spread into the back line because their performance was absolutely outstanding, wasn't it? I think everyone sort of bigging up Harry Sutar, and rightfully so, the World Cup specialist. I think we should call him, from given his performances in Qatar and the first performance of this World Cup in 2026. But Ali Chakati and Cameron Burgess were incredible next to Harry Sutar as well. I don't know if you thought that as well, Scott. I'm sure you probably did.
I did. Just quickly on the Patrick Beach thing, he did get the 45 minutes against Switzerland, and we all thought that might have just been minutes for him. Maybe it was much more than that. Maybe it was actually, I want to have a look and see if he can do that role. So that might have been something that we all missed at the time. But on the back line, you're completely right. I don't want to single out any of that back three individually because they were all absolutely brilliant in the way that they just covered for each other as well. Harry Suter in the middle of that back line just holds things together so well. And the fact that he is fully fit for this World Cup is an absolute blessing for Australia because he is a crucial part of this team, not just because he's a big, tall body for set pieces, but the way he defends and the way he can really impact opposition offenses is a really important part of the side. And it allows Cam Burgess and Ali Chakati to push out and cover the wing backs. If they do have the winger does happen to get past that, those two guys were there immediately to cover things off. So collectively, that entire back line, when they were defending, were really, really impressive. And then the way Italiano and Boss would break forward as well, and the opportunities that they had to do so, that was really effective. So the way the back line built together, we were a little bit surprised and maybe from a Brisbane perspective disappointed Lucas Harrington didn't get involved in this game. But the way that back five played, you'd almost say run the same back five out again against the USA because it combined so perfectly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think talking about that selection between Cameron Burgess and Lucas Harrington, the point I probably want to make is that Cameron Burgess also, and these days a lot of modern footballers are pretty good with both feet, right? But Cameron Burgess is obviously a left footer and predominantly a left footer, so I think it adds that little bit of balance, in terms of the distribution out from the back as well. And Cameron Burgess is a bigger body probably than Lucas Harrington as well, so the experience. There's a few different factors, but Lucas Harrington will get his chance, whether it's at this World Cup. We're not quite sure at this stage, but he'll definitely have one in the future. Another point I wanted to raise is Jacob Italiano. It clearly looks like Türkiye were attacking him, and I thought he did a wonderful job. Adam, did you think that as well?
Absolutely, I think that was the game plan, was to come down that channel, that left side channel, right at the right side of the Socceroos' defence. And look, I thought Jacob Italiano stood up magnificently, and yeah, Yildiz really sort of, they did home in that side, and again, a couple of times he did get sort of found out a little bit, but to your point as well, when he did get found out, Cameron Burgess did a sensational job to cover for him. So again, it was taking that pressure. I think it was I did see a stat somewhere that it was like 39 attacks down that left channel.
Wow.
So they certainly had a game plan, but also as well, they also then started coming down the other side as well, and Geordie Boss maybe trying to make him sort of defend a little bit more. So the wings are definitely where Turkey were aiming their attacks from, but they really sort of didn't sort of capitalize as well on that. And that's a credit to the two fullbacks.
I think that became the game plan, Alex, once they couldn't get through the middle.
Mm.
Once Gula and Çalhanoğlu could, and we'll get onto him in a minute, but once they couldn't get through the middle with the way they wanted to try and link up through the middle, and there was too many bodies in there with the three centre backs and the two holding midfielders, they had to go out wide, and they kept feeding it out to that left-hand side. And they made the change at half time. I think also partly because they wanted to get their best player onto the field at half time, but also because it wasn't really working for them down the left-hand side either. Yeah, he put a couple of half-decent crosses in, but there wasn't a lot really coming from that compared to what the US got out of Pulisic down that left-hand side. Turkey weren't as dangerous down that side as maybe they could have been. So they went down that side a lot, but nothing really came of it. I think it was, again, Australia just had this really compact, resolute, stable system of play where they sat deep, yes, but they were also so compact and there's no space between the lines. They had to go wide because there was nowhere through the middle for them to go.
Yeah,
Just to confirm, just got that stat in front of me. Final third entries, left channel 39, right channel entries 29 of the total entries of 81.
Wow.
So that's where certainly they were attacked. By that token, Australia only had 14-22. They only had 43 final third entries, so 2-1. But again, if we talk about possession stats, again, that does show dominance. But definitely their attacks were really focused down attacking the two fullbacks, and to get it to pitch a shutout, as they say, I think it's a credit to that defensive back five.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we also have to give a bit of credit, I think, as Scott pointed out, to Ocon Engsler and Aidan O'Neill, who worked the absolute socks off. They ran themselves quite literally into the ground that game. Turkey's midfield was getting no change from them at all, and hence the game plan was to go down the sides. Yildiz obviously isn't completely fit because he was a halftime substitute. And, I mean, does that affect what they did? Well, I didn't really see enough from him to concern us, and I think the back five would probably agree with me there.
He looked fit and ineffectual to me.
Yeah. He and Gula, he tried as he might, but yeah, the defense just had them covered really. And the other point, I guess we want to talk about Hakan Çalhanoğlu doing his best impression of Alvaro Recoba, saying that they dominate us, and then double down in the post-match press conference saying that they were the better side. But I mean, Hakan, mate, you need to check the score because it was 2-0. So I don't know.
I don't want to show my sort of to Turkish colours or anything like that, or feel sympathy for him. But look, I will say that technically he is right. They did dominate. They did dominate in terms of possession and stats and a whole lot of other things. But however, the point being is that you don't win games on stats. You win the games of putting the ball in the back of the net. So in that way, yeah, you could say you dominate till the cows come home. 62% possession. But at the end of the day, of that 62%, what do they do with it? 30 shots on goal to 7 still. And they get shut out. That's not you dominated, but you dominated, the statistics. You didn't dominate the game.
Didn't dominate the scoreboard.
Yeah.
And
that's the one that matters.
That's right. And, a lot of those 30-odd shots were, long shots from outside the box, speculators that, went nowhere near the goal, let's be honest. So
how many of them were actually in the penalty area? I can count like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
There was the one that from the cross on the left-hand side, that was the first time volley straight at him. There was one in the second half, and then there was the right back's shot where he probably should have cut the ball back. Other than that, most of them were from a mile outside the area. And again, you probably, I know Sweden scored a couple of nice goals from out there today, but you really shouldn't be conceding from out there. So they weren't creating real clear-cut opportunities, Turkey, despite all the statistical advantages that they claim that they had.
Funnily enough, so, and again, I sound like a nerd in stats. Because I just have them in front of me. Actually, inside the penalty area, 13. Outside the penalty area, 17 of 30 shots. So it did balance out. But you're right. I think a lot of those shots inside the penalties were like 2 or 3 times, and they weren't really shots because the only one like obviously other than the Abdul Krim, but the Ketchi's shot that in just after they scored that Patrick Beach deflected onto the post. There wasn't really that many fearsome shots. A lot were over the bar, high and wide. Arda Güler had a couple of chances, but didn't really do too much. So again, the point being, put the statistics aside. They really didn't have that many opportunities, clear-cut opportunities to threaten.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of blocks in there. I think you may have mentioned that as well.
Yeah,
I just remember Sutar being everywhere and Burgess and co just literally throwing themselves in front of any ball that was being shot, which is absolutely fantastic to see.
and
That's what you
in
want.
in Scott's defence as well, I dare say that a lot of those quite inside the penalty area were probably shots from just inside the box, like
Mm.
if not on the edge of the penalty area, like maybe a mere two, but to actually have clear cut shots from say the penalty spot to the 6 yard box line. I don't think there were that many, and I think
Also
there's
would have been blocked as well, Adam. Most
a
of those would
lot
have
of
been blocked
blocks.
by
Yeah,
defenders. I'm scanning the ones that Pat Beach
yeah.
actually had to make a save on. There weren't
Yeah.
that
Absolutely,
many of them.
and I agree with you. That's just sort of just making that point about the stats. The stats don't tell the whole story because yeah, they had 13 shots inside the penalty area, but again, that might have been only 2 or 3 that actually were shots that were threatening.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of thinking out loud here, gents. Turkey played with a false nine. The fashionable thing that all these teams with all the possession stats do, and you look at these statistics and you think, well, maybe you should have played with a number nine. And if David Bashir's commentary was correct, I believe they only had a proper out and out number nine that came on late in the game. So I mean, that's bold, isn't it, really? I mean, I know a lot of number nines are a sort of a dying breed, if you like, or there aren't as many as there used to be, let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, surely you try and pick at least two.
Apparently, Turkey, their number 9 stocks just is absolutely bare at the moment.
Mm.
I think Chan Uzun's was their recognised number 9, and he
Okay.
really hasn't done much. So yeah, I think it's a case of yeah, they just don't have number 9s at the moment that are at that level, and it showed.
Yeah.
We all got
Yeah.
to go to Sweden and bottle whatever they've got with Isak
Oh,
and Gyökeres
jeez.
and Zlatan in years gone by.
Yeah.
For a relatively
Oh.
small country to produce the number nines they have, I mean, we all got to go and work out what they're doing because it's an unbelievable record. Maybe that's the game plan.
Well, there's something in the water in Scandinavia because then you go across to Norway and you look at their starting lineup. You've got
I forgot
Haaland,
about
you've
him.
got
Yeah.
Alexander Sorloth, and you've
Yeah.
got Strand Larsen, who just moved to Palace. Strand Larsen won't even get a start. That's how. I mean, he's got one of the best number nines in the world in front of him, and then Sorloth has done all right over at Atletico Madrid. So, I mean, yeah, I completely agree, Scott. I think we've got to get over to Scandinavia and get some tips on how to produce a number 9. Although we've got a pretty handy one, Mo Toure, in our side. He was good. He didn't get really a whole lot of opportunities in the game, which is as expected. But he did pull up towards the end of the game there. I think it looked like cramp, but hopefully he's okay. Have you seen any news anywhere around the traps, Scott, on Mo Toure?
I haven't seen any news around him yet. Again, I think the soccer is having basically a full day off today, barring recovery. So I don't think you'd expect to hear anything from him today. Of course, he was in doubt for this game, although they say he was never in doubt to play, but he did miss one of the lead dealing training session. So we'll see. Hopefully he is fit for the USA game because him and Iran Kunda in the front third were really crucial for Australia. The defensive press they put in so much work, but also the threat they offer in behind. And yeah, Iran Kunda got the headlines because he scored the goal, but Mo Toure was also right there on that play, and also 2 or 3 other times down the other side of the field where he was able to get on the end of things as well. Just didn't have the end product on those occasions. Australia could have got more out of it in terms of the way they were threatening in transition. They could have got more out of it with those two players. So hopefully he is fit, and they were a really important part of just giving Australia an outlet. And if you're going to play that way, you need that outlet. And they did the work defensively, but they had the speed to get forward and be a real threat in behind. So they had a really important role to play.
Yeah, they definitely did. And we'll get to Nestor in a minute, but I guess this has sort of come to me. That what impressed me a lot about Connor Metcalf, he's renowned more so for playing as more of a central midfielder, maybe an attacking midfielder, but he was taking players on. He was beating his man. He was taking them on. He's more renowned for holding possession, and then of course he scores the second goal, which was an absolute belter. And I've not seen that side of Connor Metcalf for a while, probably since
The most
Melbourne City.
impactful game I've ever seen him play for Australia.
Yeah,
Normally he's out
incredible.
there, you don't see what he does, but in this game, it was evident what he brings to the side.
Yeah, and a pure reflection in the confidence that Tony Popovich has given him, and you can see that he's performing like he knows that his coach believes in him, and it was crucial. It was crucial what he did. He did a lot of donkey work as well up front with the press and being an out ball and holding on to it, not just playing a pass for the sake of playing a sideways or a backwards pass. It was something to retain possession, but. We can't shy away from Nestor Irankunda, can we? Our star boy, Adam. He even the goal celebration, homage to a great man who's very close to your heart. I know, being an Evertonian and an Australian in Tim Cahill. Talk about football heritage. How good was that?
Oh, it was fantastic. And again, if the reaction in my lounge room was the same when Nestor scored that goal around the country, it would have been a pure adulation. And look, we've known for a long time how good Nestor can be. He's had some ups and downs, especially since leaving Adelaide United, and sort of the trials and tribulations, being sort of just one of many faces at Bayern Munich, going out on loan. But look, I think he's arrived. I think that there's no greater announcement to the world. You are who you are. They're scoring a wonderful goal. And then it wasn't a case of just a tap in. It was the way he did, the way the confidence he showed. You got to remember, this boy is 18 years old, and the way he took on the defenders, said that touch, and then to shoot past Kakia in goal was just tremendous, and that's what you want to see. And then you're right, the homage to Tim Cahill, Australia's leading goal scorer at the World Cup, was magnificent. Just the whole moment, I think, was again. I think that's entered in at least the top 5 of Socceroos moments of all time. I think there's a few others of a little bit more importance that probably are there. A few of them that Tim Cahill probably has as well in himself, but certainly it's one that we'll never forget. And look, Connor Metcalf's goal as well, that was an absolute cracker. But let's stick to Nestor for the moment.
Yeah, let's do that. And all I want to say to that is that he's going to make Watford a lot of money this summer, or European summer, I should say. I feel, and I'm sure you probably agree, Scott. And his performance, and hopefully a couple more performances to come in this World Cup.
Well, I think there's a few players in this Socceroos squad are going to make their clubs a lot of money in the next few weeks. I'm sure Melbourne City have been fielding calls for Patrick Beach in the last 24 hours. Obviously, we're seeing the rumours about Lucas Harrington to Barcelona. I'm sure that Geordie Boss will be getting a nice a couple of bit of interest as well, maybe Tricati as well. So a lot of clubs are going to get a bit of a benefit from these performances from the Socceroos. I want to give Adam actually a shout out, because I don't know if he remembers this. The first game back in the A-League after the 22 World Cup was Brisbane playing host to Adelaide. It was a 1-1 draw, and Nestor Irankunda came off of the bench in that game, and he was really influential. And Adam said on that night, this young boy is going to be a big part of the future and will be possibly a star at the next World Cup. So you nailed that one. 4 years later, you did get that 100% spot on, and he was really, it was a great moment, wasn't it? And look, the way he took that on, Alex, once he got the ball, just the absolute conviction, no, I'm going to cut inside onto my right foot and hit this first time. That's what you want to see from a great striker. I know he's not an out-and-out number 9, but that's the sort of clinical finishing that if you're going to play the way Australia play, you have to be that clinical. And we didn't have too many shots on goal, and that's how clinical we're going to have to be in this tournament. And for him to be able to have the confidence in his first World Cup game at 20 years of age to just cut inside and hit that so perfectly, it is going to be right there. It's right there for me with the Cahill goal. It's that big of a moment. It is that big of a moment, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is incredible. Like, I'm surprised I've still got a voice, to be honest, because I was yelling and screaming after that goal. And yeah, you're 100% right. I guess, yes, he's not an out and out number 9, but he's a modern day forward, I guess, in the likes of that sort of Frank Ribery cutting inside. I don't want to say he's Frank Ribery, of course, but that kind of,
Without
those
looking
two
at Frank
blind
Ribery.
wingers. Yeah, I mean, that's
He
not
has that
that's not
career,
too
we'll all
hard,
be
is it?
happy.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would, even half the career. But those wingers, I guess, of Bayern Munich, ironically, changed the game, being those inverted wingers, and that's very much what I think Nestor could become with moments like that. You can completely see that, can't you? Like it's yeah. Sorry, Adam, go.
Sorry, so I was just going to say just a couple of things. First of all, just on Nestori, I do believe that I think if I remember correctly that the sale to Watford, I think Bayern Munich actually has a buyback option.
Yeah, I
I
think you're
I
right.
think that perhaps that maybe they may think about sort of employing that if he keeps on going that way. And the other point is just point of clarification, Scott. You say compared to the Cahill goal, which one at the World Cup?
First.
Japan one, Japan two, or the Netherlands one?
The Japan 2, the one that put us in front.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
The
The one kicked
Netherlands
off.
one is in a whole different bracket where you just have to put that in a whole different category. That's one of the
Oh,
greatest
yeah.
goals ever scored in a World Cup. And yes, I do just check that. Yes, they do have a buyback clause by Munich. And I'm sure they will be considering that option if he keeps going like this.
Mm.
Yeah, you'd think so, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk that they're looking at another winger, so maybe it's Nestori's time. Maybe he can show them that, yes, he is their man, but I mean, he's got a pretty difficult bloke to dislodge in front of him in Luis Diaz. But look, if he can learn a couple of things off him, that wouldn't be so bad either, would it? So I guess, lads, we don't want to get too carried away, but is that one of the best performances by the Socceroos at a World Cup?
I think so. You look at the control that they've had in this game, and yet Turkey had a lot of ball, had a lot of possession. They were able to get, in their terms, dominance. But for what Australia wanted to do, we didn't set up to try and control the ball. We wanted to contain what they did and hit fast in transition. And for what we wanted to do, we did it perfectly. So we know how meticulous Tony Popovich is in terms of all of the ways he goes about preparing the team. Absolutely everything is detailed to the nth degree. Tactically, it would have been the same thing. And I would imagine this Australian team carried out exactly what he wanted to do from minute 1 to minute 90. So I think it is probably one of our most controlled performances. You think about most of the other games that we have won, they haven't been as controlled as that. We were pretty comfortable in this game. It felt like the game could have continued going on for another half an hour, unless there was fatigue or just a complete slip from the Australians. They weren't going to score. So the control we had was really impressive.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there, Scott. To be honest, Adam, good luck trying to add to that, I guess, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, look, I actually think I'll just try to think back in my head. Look, a couple of wins there over time. Maybe Serbia in
Oh
2010
yeah,
might be the only one that I can think of where we're completely in control. Look, the last 15 minutes of the game, Japan, in 2006. Look, I'd say that probably once we settled down and got at least equalised, that felt like there's only go one way. So I'd certainly top three. The only other game I could actually think of where we actually had some degree of control, but in a loss, was Kaiserslautern in 2006 against Italy.
mm,
Before that incident,
mm,
look,
the incident.
yeah, that's your time. But again, that is at least in my modern sort of history. Take away 2006, it's probably the game that you felt, you know what, for a long way, Australia's got this one. And even getting into about just before Metcalf scored, you actually felt like, holy smokes, the Socceroos could actually win this and knock off Turkey. So that certainly is. And but mind you, I think there might be that list maybe add to come if things go to plan.
Yeah, that certainly looks like it's the blueprint. It's laid it out, and why change it from here on in? Especially coming up against the USA, a perfect segue because they're very much going to take the position of Turkey, but maybe with a little bit more firepower, in the form of Christian Pulisic, who looked absolutely incredible against Paraguay. I must say, I thought the US's attack was pretty bloody good to watch. And I hate to say that because, all the trash talking that they've had. But Scott, did you catch the game against Paraguay, and what were your thoughts?
I saw about the first 60 minutes and I had to duck out to go and do some of my local football coverage. They were very impressive, the United States. There's no doubt about that. They started on the front foot, and for all we've said about the way the Australians controlled the game and played beautifully in terms of being the resilient side, sitting back and containing space and now curtailing space and then hitting in transition, they were equally as effective in their own style of play in terms of pushing forward and really crowding teams out. Their press was really impressive, and the speed and energy of their players in the front was also quite impressive. So they were they were really good. Look, I expected them to be good in this group because of the fact they are at home, but there's no doubt they were better than I thought they were going to be. And it's going to be a very good examination of this Australian side on Friday morning or Friday over there, Saturday morning here in Australia in Seattle, because they did play very well, and it's very intriguing to see how that does pan out. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a moment, but yeah, in their first game against Paraguay, I'm not sure the Paraguayans really laid a glove on them in terms of the way. I don't think they were anywhere near as impressive as I thought they were going to be, but take nothing away from the US, they were really impressive.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think there was a couple of moments early on that Paraguay looked like they might do something, but it faded pretty quickly. And I don't know if about your thoughts, Adam, but Paraguay were a little bit disappointing for me.
Oh, they were very disappointing. I expect them to put more in, and I think that a lot of the mystique around them was around about how good that Enciso and the attack was, but defensively they were just out to sea.
Mhm.
That that front combination of the USA, yeah, Pulisic obviously he's the puppet master there, but also I thought Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest, and also Friedman on the other side and Balogun up front. I thought that just there. It was the perfect way. I've got to give the devil its due. That is the way, as a host nation, you want to perform in game one. That was just that is probably before some today's drubbings. That was the easily the most dominant win, and that's no that was sort of no slight against Paraguay as well. But the USA, they really 3-0 half time. That could have been anything. So I know they probably did sort of rein in just a little bit in the second half. But again, as a host nation, that's the start you want to probably even more effective than Mexico. I thought Mexico, in the end, they really sort of took down a very poor South Africa. But the Paraguay were okay, to sort of a but yeah, the USA they really sort of bullied that game, and they deserved a 3 points. That sets up a huge clash for Group D.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And just one quick note on that game before we talk about USA versus Socceroos. Pulisic did go off at halftime in that one, so let's see if he's fully fit. It would be a shame if he didn't play. Obviously, you want their best players on the pitch so that they don't have any excuses. But yes,
They'll
that could
make
be a big blow.
excuses, don't worry.
Yeah,
You
you're
can't
right.
say
They'll
what they've
find
said for
something.
the last 6 months and then not have a bunch of excuses ready to go if it goes wrong.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So, Scott, while you're there, what do you think? Is it going to be the midfield battle that's going to be the key talking point in this one, or is it attack versus defense, or a bit of both?
Well, before I say, what sport are we playing? Because I've heard that it's going to be a layup, it's going to be a home run, it's going to be a touchdown, it's going to be a wide open three. What sport are we playing here? That's the first thing we have to work out because
Mm.
the analogies that have crossed over to other sports have been rather interesting. But for me, I think it's going to be a case of the US was so strong in the front third going forward, and Australia was so strong in our low block compact style of play. Can they do what Turkey couldn't? And break through and actually create clear cut opportunities and then put the ball in the back of the net. Because if they can do that, it becomes a very different game from an Australian perspective. Then they have to push out, they have to be more expansive and have to leave a bit more space in behind, which could lead to things being a bit difficult for the Australian perspective. So if Australia can keep it as tight as it is against Turkey, it will be a very intriguing game to see how it does pan out as the game goes on and on. I'm sure they will go the same way that Turkey did and get the ball out to Pulisic. If he is playing on that left hand side, they will go down that Australian right hand side. I imagine Italiano will hold his spot over someone like a Milos Degenek, who's a more natural defender, but that might not be the worst idea to go with that if they were going to change it. But I suspect the game will look a lot like the game, but it'll look more like the Australia Turkey game than the United States Paraguay game. The question will be, can they break down the Australians? And if they can't, can Australia get down the other end and actually potentially pose some challenges to the United States, which Paraguay didn't really show. So that'll be the intriguing thing. But for me, it'll be more like our game than like their game. I don't think there's much you can really change if you're Tony Popovich. You're already sitting back pretty defensively in terms of our shape and our low block and our compactness. So there's not much more room you can go back, is there? So it's more likely that it'll be on the US to try and force a breakthrough. They're the ones who say they're going to win the game easily. So I think a draw is not the worst thing for Australia. So it's on the United States to go and make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And, Tony Popovich isn't going to completely change his tactics now, is it? He's not going to go 4-3-3 and play a false nine and, wingers with chalk on their boots and all that kind of stuff, all the different sort of attacking philosophies. Is he Adam? He's going to stick with the blueprint that got us the 3 points against Turkey. Yeah. Scott does raise a good point, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, Adam. Do you leave Italiano out there on the right, or do you bring in Jason Garrier, who came in for him in that game, or Miloš Degenek or Kai Truan?
Definitely not Kai Truan. I think if Kai Truan's going to play a part in this World Cup, it's going to be as a defensive midfielder. I think that's where it is. So we'll eliminate him. Yep. Yeah, look, I tend to agree. I tend to agree with Scott, definitely, that I think Italiano, just because of this game, the way it's going to be played, the way this attack, I think you need to go with a more defensive-minded, more experienced right wing back. The question is Degenek or Guerrier. I think maybe Guerrier just ahead of Degenek. I do see Degenek as probably a right centre back, cover for a Cam Burgess. Mind you, you've also got Lucas Harrington there in the wings. But yeah, I certainly think defensively. But from the attack point of view, the one thing, and it's sort of been hearing the commentary as well for those American pundits that actually have half a brain for this game, is that they are very, very worried about the speed up the middle of potentially of Aaron Kunda, of Toure, of a Metcalf, and sort of targeting Tim Ream and Chris Richards. Tim Ream, obviously, he's a lot older, and that doesn't mean that's not a slight age or anything like that. But apparently, there's a bit worried that he's not as fast as he could be. Chris Richards as well he's a very, very good, a bit like Harry Souttar. The fears we have about Harry Souttar is he's a big presence in the air, but he is pretty slow to turn in that. And that might be the avenue where Australia, like they did against Turkey, to attack that down the centre, that long ball, try to catch up again behind the defence. That might be the key to victory for Australia. But I do agree with Scott that the first priority is they've got to lock down that defence, because you're right. I think the USA are going to come out Australia. And again, I think the possession stats are going to be very, very similar to what Turkey did to Australia in game one.
Yeah, the possession stats will look very similar. I wouldn't have to change the entire back five. I would trust Italiano, and I like his speed going forward and that more attacking mindset in terms of having him and Geordie Boss bombing forward when we do get the opportunity to do so in transition. I would actually keep him in that role and trust the fact that he kept those two Turkey wingers pretty quiet, and then hopefully with Shakati and others helping out, he can keep Pulisic quiet as well. The change I might consider actually is Connor Metcalf and maybe bring in a Volpato. In just changing that front third a little bit, just for fresh legs, Alex, because the amount of work those players have to put in that front third, to the sprints forward they have to put in, the defensive press they have to put in, that's a lot of work off the ball that they do need to put in. And if that's not there and they're a little bit flat on that can create problems all the way through the rest of the system. So if there's going to be a change, to me, it's actually at the front, not necessarily for a creative spark perspective, but a remaking sure that the defensive press from the front is right there to minimize space, because that was a big part of the win against Turkey as well. So to me, if they're going to change anything, that's what I'd be changing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's probably going to come. Yeah, I personally as well wouldn't change that back five. I think Italiano's engine is too important down the right, and we need someone that's going to be quick to defend Pulisic rather than maybe a slower player that, like a Gary or a Degenek on that right. And yeah, completely agree with Adam on Truan. I think his best position is in the centre of midfield. And funnily enough, that's probably where another change could be thought about, whether you bring Jackson Irvine in, do you give Ocon Engsler a rest or Aidan O'Neill? guess it depends on how they are. I mean, Aidan O'Neill had a bit of an injury cloud coming into this tournament, so maybe it's him that gets to put his feet up. The other thing is it's a 6-day turnaround as well, so there's a longer turnaround. Maybe we don't need to change anything because these guys are ready to rumble straight away. So
It's
I guess,
emotional as well, Alex. It's not just the physical, it's also the big
mm,
emotion of winning a game. You've got to come down from that. That's the other thing to keep an eye on. It's not just the physical recovery.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And maybe some of those younger lads that are experiencing the World Cup for the first time might need to get benched, to put it less politely, but to be taken out of the starting 11 just for a fresh mindset and experience, especially playing a host nation with a large parochial crowd behind them. That's going to take its toll mentally as well, isn't it, Adam?
Yeah, look, you made an excellent point as well. Is that also as well? Just the atmosphere is going to change as well. I think that Australia were probably they probably felt more at home, if not 50-50, the crowd in Vancouver. It's definitely going to be enemy territory at Lumen Field, Seattle Stadium, on on Friday night in the US, or Friday afternoon, I should say, because it is going to be it's a very, very loud stadium by nature as well, and it's going to be a very parochial US crowd with probably only maybe a couple of thousand Australians there, which is a great turnout. And look, also as well, just quickly, credit to the Australian supporters as well. They really, really gave that atmosphere both on the way to the ground before the game and during the game. So a credit to them as well. Hopefully they can bring the noise in Seattle, but they're going to be up against a much larger home contingent in that game.
They certainly will. And Alex, this is where the game against Mexico in the Rose Bowl was so smart when you look back at it in hindsight, because
Mm.
they basically played a World Cup host in their not in their own country, but near enough to it in terms of the expats in that part of the United States. So they got that experience of what it's like to go up against a host nation and that white hot energy. So, and that was a World Cup warm up game, but it felt the crowd was like a World Cup game. So that experience that the Australian players got in that game, it's the best they could possibly find to get themselves fully tuned in for what the United States game will feel like. And I imagine that's probably why Tony Popovich wanted Mexico as one of the lead up games, because of the fact player, host nation, get that experience, get the feel of the crowd. So it won't be completely foreign to the Australians, but it will certainly be a parochial atmosphere over there in Seattle on Friday afternoon.
Funny enough, Scott, there were more Mexicans at the Rose Bowl than will be of Americans, less the Australian supporters there. So, although Lumen Field, again, as I said, notoriously very, very loud the way it is constructed, but look, 76,000 Mexicans. It'll only be around about 60,000 US supporters. So again, it's a perfect preparation, that warm up game. Yes, it's a 1-0 loss, but I think they would have actually gotten so much out of that experience, especially the younger guys who've never been there before. And I do believe as well, it's the first time in 52 years that Australia will be playing a host nation at a World Cup.
Yes, it will. 1974 against Germany. Yeah, you're right. I've a good pick up there, Adam. Very good pick up. And it'd be remiss of me not to give a quick shout out to our good friend Liam Parslow, who was at the game in
Yes.
Vancouver as well. If you didn't see it, all over social media, as he likes to share. But yeah, just wanted to give you a shout out, Liam, for your wonderful work in the crowd, cheering on our boys to victory against Turkey. Yeah. Anyway, lads, let's wrap it up there. It's been a great episode. Great to enjoy this victory with you both and discuss it. I guess same time next week, we'll be discussing this US game, and hopefully we get something out of that one, and we can start talking about a game against Paraguay in the following week with some optimistic views, much like this one. But before we go, Adam, I'll get you to plug the Brisbane Football Review one more time for our listeners.
Yep, I'll try and get this one a bit more smoothly. So you can find us on Facebook, the Raw Review, or at Brisbane Football Review. on Twix at BNE Football, Instagram and Threads, Brisbane Football Review, all lowercase. You can drop us an email, brisbanefootballreview@gmail.com, and you can follow us on podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks for your efforts tonight, and thank you as well, Scott, for your efforts. We'll do it again next week. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.